Imagine waking up next Monday morning, getting into your car, and within 10 minutes of leaving your driveway, you're pulled over. Not because you were speeding, not because you ran a red light, but because a system you didn't even know existed flagged your vehicle before a single police officer even looked your way. Your license is checked, your history is scanned, and what happens next depends entirely on whether you watched a video like this one before that moment arrived. This is not fiction. This is what Australian drivers are about to face starting next week. And the scale of what's been planned, the technology that's been deployed, and the absolute determination of police forces across every single state to make this crackdown count, it is something that every driver in this country needs to understand right now. Welcome to AU Driving Insider. Stay with me until the very end of this video, because what's coming could change your life on the road permanently, and the drivers who know about it in advance are the only ones who have a fighting chance of coming through it unscathed. To understand why next week marks such a significant moment in Australian driving history, you need to understand what's been building behind the scenes for the past 2 years. Because this crackdown didn't appear overnight. It was planned, funded, debated, and ultimately approved at the highest levels of government. And the reason it got approved is because the data demanded it. Australia's road fatality numbers have been telling a disturbing story. After years of gradual improvement, the trend reversed. Deaths on Australian roads began climbing again. And when investigators started digging into the causes, really digging, not just looking at surface-level statistics, what they found was deeply uncomfortable. The majority of fatal and serious accidents were not random. They were predictable. They were caused by the same behaviors, repeated over and over again, by drivers who either didn't know the rules, didn't respect the rules, or simply believed they were never going to get caught breaking them. That last category, the ones who believed they'd never get caught, is who next week's crackdown is specifically designed for, because the entire architecture of what's been put in place is built around one central idea. There is nowhere left to hide. Let's start with what police forces across Australia have actually been given to work with, because the resources and technology deployed for this operation are genuinely unprecedented. Every major state police force has received significant additional funding specifically for traffic enforcement. In practical terms, this means more officers on the road, more unmarked vehicles, more mobile units, and more dedicated traffic divisions operating around the clock. But the human element is just one part of the picture. The technology sitting behind these officers is what makes this crackdown fundamentally different from anything that's come before. Automatic number plate recognition, ANPR, systems have been upgraded and expanded across the country. These are cameras mounted on police vehicles and fixed infrastructure that can scan and process thousands of number plates per hour. Every plate that passes through is checked in real time against a database that includes unregistered vehicles, vehicles with suspended owners, vehicles linked to outstanding warrants, and vehicles flagged for any number of compliance issues. The check happens in less than a second. The officer gets an alert, and the vehicle is pulled over before the driver even realizes they've been identified. What's new is the integration. Previously, these systems operated largely within state boundaries. Starting next week, the data sharing between states becomes fully operational. A vehicle flagged in Queensland will be visible to a police officer running plates in Victoria. A driver whose license was suspended in New South Wales will be known to enforcement in Western Australia. For the first time in Australia's history, the road network is being treated as a single nationally monitored environment, and the implications of that are enormous. Now here's something that's going to make a lot of drivers deeply uncomfortable, and I think it should, because it represents a genuine shift in how enforcement works in this country. Predictive policing tools are being incorporated into this crackdown. Using historical accident data, traffic flow analysis, weather patterns, time-of-day statistics, and event calendars, algorithms are now being used to predict where dangerous driving behavior is most likely to occur, and deploying resources there proactively rather than reactively. Police aren't waiting for accidents to happen and then responding. They're positioning themselves where the data says incidents are most likely, before anything goes wrong. This means that the old mental model many drivers have, where enforcement feels random, where getting caught feels like bad luck, is increasingly inaccurate. The system is getting smarter, it's learning, and drivers who rely on the assumption that they just won't happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time are operating on a logic that no longer reflects reality. Let's talk about the specific operations that have been publicly announced for next week, because there are several distinct enforcement pillars, and each one deserves serious attention. The first is Operation Shield, a nationally coordinated effort targeting unregistered and uninsured vehicles. Australia has a significant problem with vehicles operating without current registration, and the consequences extend far beyond the individual driver. An unregistered vehicle is often also an uninspected vehicle, meaning brakes, tires, lights, and structural safety haven't been verified. When these vehicles are involved in accidents, the outcomes are worse, and the victims, other drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, have no insurance protection. Under Operation Shield, ANPR cameras will be the primary detection tool. Any unregistered plate triggers an immediate intercept. The penalties are substantial, fines that run into the thousands of dollars, immediate vehicle impoundment in many cases, and the cost and complexity of getting the vehicle back. For drivers who've let their registration lapse thinking they'll sort it out next month, next week is not the time to be on the road. The second enforcement pillar targets something that Australian police have been building toward for years, and that's comprehensive mobile drug testing at a scale the country has never seen. Drug driving has become one of the fastest growing causes of serious accidents in Australia. And the challenge with drug driving, unlike alcohol, is that there's no widely understood limit. Most drivers have a rough sense of what 0.05 blood alcohol means in practical terms. But with drugs, cannabis, methamphetamine, MDMA, cocaine, and now certain prescription medications, the legal position is zero tolerance, any detectable presence, any at all. Next week, mobile drug testing units will be deployed across all major states simultaneously. The locations include not just highways and known nightlife routes, but suburban areas, shopping precincts, and commuter corridors. The tests themselves have been upgraded, faster, more sensitive, and capable of detecting a broader range of substances than previous generations of roadside technology. Results that previously took several minutes now come back in under 90 seconds. And here is the part that catches people completely off guard. Cannabis, unlike most other substances, can remain detectable in saliva for an extended period after use, in some cases, days. A person who used cannabis on the weekend and genuinely feels completely sober and unimpaired on a Tuesday morning can still return a positive roadside test. Under Australian law, that is an offense. The subjective experience of feeling fine is not a legal defense. Detectability is the standard. Full stop. This is one of the most important things that AU Driving Insider can tell you, because it's a reality that many drivers simply don't understand until they're standing at a roadside testing station facing consequences they never anticipated. I want to stop here for just a second and be direct with you. If you've been watching AU Driving Insider for a while, you know this channel doesn't do clickbait. Every video we make is grounded in real information, real legislation, and real enforcement activity. And I'm telling you with complete sincerity, the crackdown beginning next week is real, it is comprehensive, and the drivers who aren't prepared for it are going to face serious consequences. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it right now. Hit subscribe and the notification bell, because we are going to keep covering every development in Australian driving law as it happens. And staying informed is genuinely the most important thing you can do to protect your license, your wallet, and your freedom on the road. The third enforcement pillar, and this one has some of the most severe consequences attached to it, is a dedicated operation targeting repeat traffic offenders. Every state in Australia maintains records of drivers who accumulate repeated violations. What's changing starting next week is how that data is being acted upon. Police have been given lists of high-risk repeat offenders, drivers whose history of violations suggests a pattern of dangerous behavior rather than occasional mistakes. These individuals are being actively sought out. Their vehicles are being flagged in the ANPR system, and when they're identified on the road, the response is immediate and serious. For these drivers, the crackdown isn't about a fine in the mail. It's about license cancellation, vehicle impoundment, and in some cases, criminal charges. The government has made a clear decision that a small percentage of drivers are responsible for a disproportionate share of road danger, and that business as usual with these individuals is no longer acceptable. But here's why this matters even if you're not a repeat offender. The resources being dedicated to this operation mean that every interaction police have with any driver is now more thorough than it was before. When you're pulled over for any reason, even a minor one, the officer has access to more information about your driving history than ever before. A driver who might previously have received a warning for a minor infraction may now find that a previous violation they'd half forgotten about comes back into the picture in ways they didn't expect. Know your history. Know your demerit point balance. Know exactly where you stand, because next week, the officers you interact with will know it too. Let's talk about speed enforcement specifically, because the changes here are both sweeping and technically sophisticated in ways that most drivers haven't caught up with yet. Average speed cameras, also called point-to-point cameras, have been significantly expanded across Australia's highway network. These systems work by recording your vehicle at one point, then recording it again at another point some distance away, and calculating your average speed across that entire stretch. You cannot outsmart them by slowing down at visible camera locations. Your average speed across the whole corridor is what determines whether you receive a fine, and the fines are issued automatically, without any human review required. The corridors that are being activated or extended next week span some of Australia's most heavily traveled roads, major highway routes in New South Wales, key arterials in Victoria, long stretches of Queensland's highway network, and the enforcement threshold in many of these corridors has been tightened. The informal buffer that many drivers relied upon, that comfortable few kilometers over the limit that felt safe, is no longer safe in these zones. Additionally, mobile speed enforcement is being dramatically intensified. Unmarked vehicles with laser speed detection equipment will be operating across the road network in numbers that haven't been seen before. These vehicles look like ordinary cars. They drive in ordinary traffic, and they can accurately record the speed of vehicles around them without any visible indication that enforcement is occurring. There is no advance warning, there is no camera sign, there is simply a fine that arrives in your mailbox several days later. For drivers who have habitually treated speed limits as suggestions rather than rules, next week is the moment where that habit becomes genuinely dangerous to your license and your finances. There's one more element of next week's crackdown that I want to make sure we cover, and it's one that affects a demographic that often gets overlooked in these conversations: international license holders and recently arrived migrants. Australia has a significant population of people who moved here from other countries and are driving on either international licenses or recently converted Australian licenses. And this group faces a unique set of challenges in the context of next week's enforcement operation. First, many people driving on international licenses in Australia are doing so beyond the period that their license is actually valid for use here. The rules vary by state, but in most cases, an international license is only valid for a limited period after you become a permanent resident. After that, you're required to hold an Australian license. Driving on an expired international license in Australia is, legally, driving without a license. The consequences are severe, and next week's ANPR sweeps will flag these vehicles. Second, drivers who have recently converted to Australian licenses are often placed on provisional licenses, regardless of their overseas experience. Provisional license conditions include lower speed limits, zero blood alcohol tolerance, restrictions on certain vehicle types, and a much smaller demerit point buffer. Many recently arrived drivers don't fully appreciate how different these conditions are from what they were used to in their home countries. Next week is a very bad time to discover this the hard way. If you are an international driver, or if you know someone who is, please share this video with them. AU Driving Insider exists specifically to make sure that people who are new to Australian roads, people who may not have access to this information in their first language, people who are still learning how this system works, don't fall into traps that could have been avoided with the right knowledge. Let's bring this home, because I want to leave you with something practical, not just something alarming. The crackdown beginning next week is significant, it is real, and it is going to catch a lot of drivers off guard. But it does not have to catch you off guard. The information you need to navigate this safely is available, and you've already taken the most important step by watching this video to the end. Check your registration today. If it's lapsed or close to expiring, sort it out before you drive again. Check your license status and your demerit point balance through your state's transport authority website. Review your medication situation with your doctor if you take anything that could affect your driving. Set your speed. Put your phone away. Make sure your vehicle is roadworthy, lights working, tires legal, nothing that would attract attention during a routine stop. These are not complicated steps, they are the basics. And the basics, executed consistently, are what keep you on the right side of a crackdown that is going to be unlike anything Australian roads have seen in living memory. Thank you for spending this time with AU Driving Insider. If this video gave you real value, and I genuinely believe it did, please hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this channel reach thousands more drivers who need this information before next week arrives. Leave a comment below and tell me, what part of this crackdown concerns you the most? The drug testing? The ANPR system? The speed cameras? Whatever it is, I want to hear from you. And I read and respond to every single comment personally. And if you are not yet part of the AU Driving Insider community, subscribe right now. Hit that bell. Turn on all notifications. Because the driving landscape in Australia is changing faster than ever before, and this channel is your best resource for staying ahead of every single change as it happens. Drive smart, stay informed, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.